Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
This week we're discussing Chapter 12, Charms.
Yes. Exciting.
Yeah, and the beginning part is about Kettricken of the Mountains, and this being a sacrifice.
Yes, it's kind of re-explaining the culture of the Mountain Kingdom and more specifically Mountain Royalty, and that unlike the Six Duchies in the Mountain Kingdom, it's more of a belief that the ruler is treated so well because they have to sacrifice everything for their people. Whereas in the Six Duchies, that's not necessarily always the case.
Yep, and it is from Bedel's Mountain Queen, apparently.
Yes, I've started taking note of all of the excerpt information we get, and at the end, I think I'll try to come to some conclusion and let everybody know how many are repeated and what isn't repeated. So, but yes, whoever Bedel is, he had a lot to say about the mountain culture.
And we wake up with Fitz. Actually, no, go to bed with Fitz as night is getting on and morning is starting to crawl as he heads down from the skill tower that Chade brought him up to look at the scrolls the night before. So he goes down to his chamber to go to sleep for a few scant hours before the fool wakes him up.
He does talk a little bit about how, as he's on his way to bed, how he would kind of prefer to use the big comfy bed that Chade used to use.
Yeah.
Because clearly it's in disuse. There were spider webs on the canopies. However, it still feels like Chade's room, and so he doesn't want to take that away from the area by sleeping in it and claiming it as his own. It just feels like that's Chade's space, and he needs to respect that.
I got the same kind of feeling from the live ship traders when the Vestrits were in their old home and Ronica was going around, oh, this was Ephron and Mai's place, you know? It's kind of like weird to reuse a room that you grew up knowing was a certain way.
Right. So, yeah, there's definitely that, like, and I don't think it's like a negative. I think it's more of just a respect thing of like, that was so his for so long. It would be weird to just take it over without asking and just because his bed is a little uncomfortable.
I know he does eventually sleep in the tower, especially in the third or the last trilogy.
Yes. But for now, it's still too fresh. And to be fair, the last time he was there, it was Chade's. So to him, it still is, but probably hasn't been Chade's in at least 10 years.
Right. So he gets back to his room and his pack and Verity's sword were on the bed. He kind of lays down, but he's staring wide-eyed around the room in that pitch dark, trying to fall asleep. But more personal worries found me and chewed on me. My boy and my wolf would be on the road to Buckkeep tonight. It was unsettling to realize I was now counting on Hap to care for the old wolf that had always been his protector. He had his bow and he was good with it. They'd be fine. Unless they were set on by highwaymen. Even then, Hap would probably eliminate one or two before they were captured, which would only anger the rest of them. Ned Eyes would fight to the death before he'd let Hap be taken, which left me with the pleasant image of my wolf dead in the road and my son captured by angered highwaymen, and I'd be too far away to do anything for them.
So, yeah, Fitz is just having a little bit of nighttime anxiety and fears for his child and wolf. And I do want to point out that he does, as you just read, call Hap his son.
Yeah.
Which was my big beef like 2 chapters ago whenever he left for Buckkeep right before that. And he was saying, and Hap said, well, I'm not your kid. Why would you do this? And instead of saying, you are my son, he's like, well, you're as close to a son as I'll get. But now it's his own head and nobody's there to hear. So of course it is his son.
Well, he can't get attached because no one loves him back like that.
That's true. He wouldn't want to admit that he has feelings or cares about Hap. No way. That's embarrassing. But I just thought that was an interesting little detail, especially so close to the chapter where we had him distinctly say, well, you're as close to a son as I'll get. And here, after talking about how the realization for him in his head of his actual son, Dutiful, does have this connection to him through the skill, it's interesting then this chapter to have him refer to Hap as his son.
Mm-hmm. But he tries to put Hap out of his mind. It's no use in worrying about disasters that have not happened yet. So he thinks back on the skill scrolls that he had just finished perusing with Chade. I had expected 3 or 4 scrolls. What he had shown me were several chests of scrolls in various degrees of preservation. Even he had not been through all of them, though he thought he had them somewhat sorted into topics and levels of difficulty. He had presented me with a large table with 3 scrolls unrolled on it. My heart sank. The lettering on 2 of the scrolls was so archaic I could barely decipher it. The others seemed more recent, but almost immediately I encountered words and phrases that made no sense to me. It recommended an anticula trance and suggested a helpful infusion made from an herb called shepherd's wort. I'd never heard of it. The scroll further cautioned me to beware of dividing my partner's self-barrier, as I might then diffuse his enma. I looked up to Chade in bewilderment. He instantly divined my problem. I thought you would know what it meant, he said defeatedly. I shook my head. If Galen ever knew what these words and terms meant, he never divulged them to me. Chade gave a snort of contempt. I doubt our skill master could even read these characters. He sighed. Half of any trade is understanding the vocabulary and idiom the practitioners use. With time, we might piece it together with clues from the other scrolls, but we have precious little time. With every passing moment, the prince may be carried farther from Buckkeep. And then Fitz cautions him, or he might not have even left town yet. We can't act like this. We have to think before we act. So they're sitting there, and Fitz is faced with this daunting realization that, it's not just a couple scrolls to go over.
Right. Not only is it way more scrolls than he thought, but there's also the fact that half the scrolls are in ancient language. It's
right.
not, and he does know how to translate, I think, those languages, because I'm pretty sure in the first series he was trained to do that. But also, it's really hard to remember all the stuff and translations that you learned as a kid. Like, I used to know Old English. If I looked at an Old English text now, I don't think I could translate it quickly. At one point I could have, but that doesn't mean now. I mean, I would still recognize some, but I think it's definitely also that dauntingness of, this is a task where I now have to relearn as I go, and there's a time crunch.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, they're also using words you don't know. And so,
and on top of that, he's exhausted.
Yes.
From his days of travel and everything like that. So Chade eventually, when he's falling asleep in the tower, is like, go to bed.
Right.
You need to be rested for this.
Which is kind of funny, because we do have this sort of back and forth where, on the one hand, in a lot of ways, Fitz is sort of taking over the role of the adult in the room, so to speak, with Chade, where he's cautioning Chade not to act rashly. He's reminding Chade to think of all of the pieces of information. He's doing all those things that his mentor used to do for him. But then at the same time, we have Chade putting Fitz to bed because he's too tired and staying up later to continue doing the tasks. And I find it so interesting that there is that back and forth, and of this role of slightly being taken over by Fitz and then going right back to Chade. I don't know. I find it really fun. And I feel like it is really true to the experience of being an adult with adult parents. Like, they're still your parent. They're still, they're still in charge in a lot of ways, but sometimes
they're not infallible.
No.
Reminders. And
but
Chade right here is too emotionally close to the case.
Exactly. And so I think it's that really good writing skill that Hobb has, where it feels very real to have the now grown up Fitz taking on more of the adult responsibility and realizing, that Chade is just a human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Not this superhero. So interesting stuff. But he is, worried about what comes next, and he's thinking on those scrolls and thinking that he should at least try to reach Dutiful through the skill
tonight,
since he can't sleep anyway.
So he does try. He's trying to recall what he remembered of the boy and the cat, their exhilaration, their feelings. He summons up the recollection of the scents that had flavored the air. Almost I could enter that dream, but that was not what I sought. I tried to recall a tenuous skill link I had not been aware of at the time I experienced it. So he thinks of Prince Dutiful, the son of my body. These titles in my mind had no impressions attached to them, yet oddly they interfered with what I was trying to do. My preconceived notions of dutiful, my possessive idealizations of what my natural son would be like, stood between me and the frail threads of the skill link I sought to untangle. From somewhere in the keep, the stone bones of the castle carried a stray bit of music to my ears. It distracted me. I blinked at the dark before me. I had lost all sense of time. Night stretched eternally around me. So we get our first little hint of thick there.
Yes. Yeah, I was trying to remember. I'm like racking my brain, like this stray bit of music. What is that from? It's something, and it's thick.
Yep.
But we don't know that yet. We haven't met him.
No, but he pops up a couple times.
He does,
in
if
this
you know
chapter.
how to look like us rereaders. But there is this really interesting moment here with Fitz where he is, letting what he thinks his son would be get in the way of who his son is because he's never met Dutiful.
Right.
So Dutiful is just an idea. And he's known this whole time that Dutiful is technically his son. But he spent so long putting a barrier up of that's not my son, that's Verity's son, that it's really harming him now when he's trying to reach out and think of Dutiful as his son with his skill link. And it's really interesting to have that internal dilemma here shown where he doesn't know. He doesn't know what to think. What would his son be like?
And that in and of itself is also a barrier.
And then he sort of starts being the Fitz we know and love, which is grumpy and complainy about life circumstances, because as he's failing in one task, he turns his anger over to this small windowless room with the scratchy blankets. He just hates it. He hates it here. He doesn't want to be here.
I lived too long with my wolf to be a fan of confinement.
Yes.
And away from natural worlds because there's no windows either. So
Right.
he turns away from the skill and reaches out with the wit to see what Night Eyes is up to.
Yes. And I do just want to point out that potentially some of that discomfort in being in this small room with no windows, it's all stone, could also be reminiscent of his last time at Buckkeep, which was in a cell. So I am kind of being a little jokey about like, oh, he's being such a complainer. But at the same time, I do recognize that
he doesn't have great memories attached to this keep all the time, you know?
No. And whether or not he is aware of that maybe affecting his mood and why it's so hard to concentrate in this moment, I think I don't know. It's hard to say, but I definitely could see that being the main source of his discomfort at this moment.
So he reaches out towards Night Eyes, finds him, and feels the dull thunder of pain in Night Eyes' hips and back. I withdrew quickly when I sensed that my focusing on his pain was bringing it to the forefront of his mind. I had sensed no fear or foreboding in him, only weariness and aching joints. I wrapped him in my thoughts, drawing gratefully on his senses. I'm sleeping, he grumpily informed me. Then, you're worried about something? It's nothing. I just wanted to know you were fine. Oh, yes, we're fine. We've had a lovely day of walking down a dry, dusty road. Now we're sleeping at the edge of it. Then, more kindly, he added, Don't worry about things you can't change. I'll be with you soon. Watch Hap for me. Of course. Go to sleep. So with Night Eyes' senses, he can feel Hap nearby and smell Hap's salty sweat. And it reassures Fitz, and eventually he does drift off to sleep. The nature that is surrounding Night Eyes really does lull him back into a sleep. So maybe it is just kind of that lack of natural world.
Could be, yeah. I think there's also, I don't know, there's a lot of things at play that is stopping him from sleeping. Yeah, but I do love that Night Eyes is all grumpy and then is like, all right, you're obviously having a hard time. It's fine. I'll come help you. In a lot of ways, Night Eyes is like Fitz's older brother. Even though Fitz is technically older, but there is this sort of sense of like, all right, I'm coming to take care of you. Don't worry, baby bro. You're going to be fine.
Then there's a bit of a page break, and we are interrupted in the middle of Fitz's sleep with, "Might I remind you that you are to serve as my valet, and not the reverse?" The words that jolted me from sleep were spoken with Lord Golden's arrogant sneer, but the smile on the fool's face was entirely his own. A set of clothing hung over his arm, and I could smell warm, scented water. He was already faultlessly dressed in garb that was even more elegantly understated than what he had worn yesterday. His colors today were cream and forest green, with a thin edging of gilt at his cuffs and collar. He wore a new earring, a filigreed golden orb. I knew what was inside it. He looked fresh and alert. I sat up and then cradled my aching head in my hands. Skill headache? It's like, no, I wish it was.
I'm just tired.
I'm just tired.
Realistic.
Yeah.
Relatable, I should say. But yes, so Fitz, I don't think has really thought much about this role that he is to play. But
Not yet.
He is the valet of Lord Golden. Like, that is why he is there ostensibly. And to at least all the other people that don't know Fitz, for who he truly is. And so it's really this funny moment of sort of surprise, you still actually have stuff to do. You do have to be my valet, but it's still friendly.
Not that the fool like actually needs help getting dressed or anything, but
there has to be some appearances
exactly
kept up, which is what they talk about.
Mm-hmm. So there's a bit of a catch up about what Fitz and Chade spoke about last night, and Fitz is like, there's no really any updates yet, and there's too many thoughts of where he might be. So we don't really have any solid plans as of yet. If he ran on his own, that only increases the number of places he might have gone.
He then starts washing himself for the morning in the little basin and asks Fool if the steam baths are still by the old guardhouse, to which he gets another rude awakening from Beloved that, yes, they still are there, but servants don't use them. And you need to be careful not to fall into old habits. Just because you're here and that's what you used to do doesn't mean you can still do it, or that you should even. You want to stay as far away from who Fitz was as possible so that nobody has a chance to recognize you.
Yeah. Generally speaking, servants get the second use of their master's or mistress's bathwater, or they haul their own from the kitchens. I gave him a look. I'll haul my own tonight. So he starts using the hand basin as best as he can, and while he was shaving, Lord Golden observes quietly, "You'll have to get up earlier tomorrow. All the kitchen staff know that I am an early riser. And they'll be expecting my servant to come down for my breakfast tray." The sense sank in slowly. He was right. I needed to do a better job of stepping into my role if I was to find out anything useful. "I'll go now," I offered. He shook his head. "Not looking like that. Lord Golden is a proud and temperamental man. He would not keep such a rough-thatched servant as you show yourself now. We must make you look your part. Come here and sit down." So he gets out a comb, shears, and is bound to give Fitz a haircut, but stares in the mirror for a while and he just can't.
Yeah.
It'll have to do like this.
He can't bring himself to cut Fitz's hair into the short cropped servant style.
Yeah.
And feels really bad about even trying, and sort of puts that away and says, well, whatever. You can have the warrior's tale. It's fine. And I really do feel like this is a little bit of a soft spot for Beloved, because this is Fitz. This is how Fitz is. And that's
Right.
like so much of his identity is how he looks in a way, to Beloved at least. And so taking that away just feels too much.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the fool is also focused on, well, we don't need to do this probably. Let's get you into the clothing. Let's
Yes.
let you look nicer. But before we get to him dressing, Fitz has a realization, looking into a mirror, that Starling was right. He does look older than his years.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because it's not as though Fitz didn't have a mirror whenever he was in the cabin. I think it was just a small one for shaving mostly.
Yeah.
And so here he's sitting with like an actual big mirror where he can see more of himself at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that realization of, wow, I've aged. Like it's very clear that I've lived a hard life. But he's also kind of surprised that he doesn't look as harsh as he was expecting. Like the scar on his face has really sort of started to blend in with the wrinkles on his face, and so it's not as like in depth.
Yeah, he says the scar has faded. It's still there as a seam, but it's not like a huge scar
It looks
through the middle of
scary,
his face. Yeah.
which it did when he was younger because his face didn't have anything else to it. He was a boy.
And it was healing. It was fresh.
Yeah, and so of course it looked scarier, but now that he's actually looking at it with his grown-up self, it's not that bad.
Mhm. So he goes back to the room and starts getting dressed, or at least looks at the clothes that he has to put on. They were cut from the familiar blue homespun that servants at Buckkeep had always worn. It was not all that different from the clothing I had worn as a child, but as I put it on, it felt different. I was donning the garments that marked me to all eyes as a serving man. A disguise, I told myself. I was not truly anyone's servant. But with a sudden pang, I wondered how Molly had felt the first time she had donned the blue dress of a serving girl. Bastard or not, I was the son of a prince. I had never expected to wear the garments of a servant. In place of my farseer charging buck, there was an embroidery of Lord Golden's golden cock pheasant. Yet the garments fit me well, and actually, these are the best quality clothes I've worn in years, I ruefully admitted. The fool leaned round the door to look at me, and for a second I thought I saw anxiety in his eyes. But at the sight of me, he grinned, and then made a show of walking a slow circle of inspection around me. So I think he is worried about how Fitz is going to react to dressing as a servant and doing this,
Right.
because he realizes correctly that Fitz is going to be like, this is below me, but also I need to do it, but also it
Yeah.
just feels bad.
It's really interesting. I think this whole chapter really emphasizes, to me at least when I read it, how much, I don't want to say ego because it has such a negative connotation, but how much ego Fitz does have. And I don't mean that negatively. I just mean that he has, like, as much as he has a lot of self-loathing, he does still think of himself in a certain way. And so it's really interesting that when he is put into a position where he needs to act at a station way lower than he has ever been in his life, it is a struggle for him.
Yeah, I wouldn't say ego. I think it's his self-worth that is tied up to how he was born and how he
Yes.
was raised.
Okay, yeah,
Because,
sure.
like, his self-worth is tied to how well he does at his job and who loves him, and everything that he did was for the crown. And, you know, I was born to help the crown, and my father was going to be king. I was born to a prince, and now I'm going to be a serving person.
Yeah,
Like
it's
that,
really,
that eliminates my worth. Like, I'm less than I was before, is in
Yeah.
his mind, I think.
I think it's really interesting because it almost gives off that feel of like rich person gets a job for the first time. And I know like that's a harsh reading.
Because he's had a tough life.
He
and
has
he's
had a
done
tough life.
worse things than being a serving man.
Yeah, but it's just so interesting that it's like the act of putting on the serving clothes and being a humble servant is so hard for him. And it keeps coming up. It's like every little detail of this isn't what I had when I was Fitz chivalry is just another needle poking him. And I find it so interesting because he hated being Fitz chivalry. He did not want to be the bastard son of chivalry. He did not want to be half royalty. And yet here, when he is given a chance to come back to his old stomping grounds and his home and be not a bastard, just a regular person in the castle, he hates it. He wants all the things that he had.
Yeah,
It's-
like we've said before, he wanted to be ideally like the fourth or fifth son of a wealthy lord, so he could just be alone on a manor in the middle of the woods somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about this at all in the first trilogy, but it's something that I think of quite often when I think about Fitz and his attitude towards his birthrights and like what life he gets to live, and just in general his whole thought of what he wants from the world, right? Like he wants the status and wealth that was given to him with his birth without any of the responsibilities.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't want to have to be beholden to the throne or do any of the hard stuff that he doesn't want to do. He wants to have live in the middle of nowhere and have a simple life, but also have money to buy all the fine foods and stuff that he's used to. He's
have Sandsedge brandy on hand and all the inks that he could want and paper.
He really does want to be a Nepo baby, but without having to pay homage to the Nepo, the Nepo culture. Like, he's like, I don't know. It's just really funny to me in a weird way, because he does like what he gets from being Fitz chivalry, but he can't separate the things he likes from what he doesn't like in his mind. The things he likes, those are just things that happen to him and would happen to him no matter who he was. The things he doesn't like, those are all only because he's Fitz chivalry. And I think that's the dissonance that he's really coming face to face with here, of like, oh no, if I was a regular person at this keep, this would be how I lived. I wouldn't get all those other things.
So he puts on some new boots that Lord Golden provides him as well. And Lord Golden is directing him very specifically. He says, make sure you go to the kitchens. I'm sure you remember the way. Tell them I ate little last night and hence am ravenous this morning. Then bring up enough for both of us. It was strange to have him direct me so minutely, but I reminded myself I had best get used to it. So I bobbed a bow at him and essayed a yes, sir, before I went out the door of the chamber. He started to smile, caught himself, and inclined a slow nod to me. So he heads out into the castle in his servant's garb, on his way to collect a tray of food to bring back up to Lord Golden. And while he's doing so, he remarks that he was worried about people recognizing him. But what he realizes that as he's dressed as a servant, no one notices him, except for some of the other servants. They look at him curiously, of course, but nobody otherwise notices him because he's a servant.
Yeah, he also notes that he's not sure if it's because of his new station or if it's something that Kettricken has done, but there are more servants about than he ever remembers there being.
Yeah, and the sparse simplicity that always kind of was around in Buckkeep has changed. It's a little bit more lush, a little bit more ornate. The tapestries and banners that remained were clean and free of cobwebs. So it's a little bit changed now, a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more like a castle, a palace, if you will.
Well, I will say that it does say that the ornate was what he grew up with. It's more...
Oh, yes. Yeah. That there was ornate clutter.
Yes, that he grew up with. And now it's more sparse, but really well taken care of. And it looks nicer because of it.
Yes. I got that backwards.
That's okay.
He thinks that's probably Queen Kettricken's mountain ways kind of bringing that in.
Right. And then he gets to the kitchen and realizes that Cook Sarah definitely still reigns here.
Yeah, what Jade said was true. She's still there, but she's kind of posted up in the corner, directing things and not doing much.
Yes. And he finds himself kind of staring at her and then realizes he needs to definitely not do that, because if anyone in here is going to recognize him, it's her. So he needs to sort of back off and not act like he knows Cook Sarah, because he's supposed to be a stranger here. And he ends up asking a serving person in the kitchen, I'm here for Lord Golden's meal. And the guy sort of put off and goes, yeah, the food's over there. Get it yourself. I'm not his servant. And Fitz really realizes oh yeah, nobody's going to do anything for me. I'm the servant here.
Yeah, but he was inwardly grateful as well, because then he didn't have to explain how much food he wanted. He could just serve up enough for both of them and bring it back up.
And honestly, what a great position to be in, because then he can get the foods he wants.
Yeah, right.
And he doesn't have to be oh yeah, Lord Golden now really likes spice cakes.
I was halfway up the stairs when I heard a familiar voice in conversation. I halted, then leaned on the balustrade to look down. Unbidden, a smile came to my face. Queen Kettricken strode through the hall below, a half-dozen ladies struggling valiantly to keep pace with her. I knew none of her ladies. They were all young, none much past 20. They had been children when I was last at Buckkeep. One looked vaguely familiar, but perhaps I had known her mother. My gaze fixed on the queen. Before we describe Queen Kettricken, I think that is Rosemary following her,
Mm.
that he vaguely recalls.
Oh, interesting. I definitely underlined that he vaguely recalled one of them, but didn't even piece together it might have been Rosemary.
At least that's what I think.
Okay.
So.
It definitely could be.
Kettricken's shining hair, still gloriously golden, was looped and pinned about her head in a crown of braids. She wore a simple circlet of silver atop her head. She was dressed in russet brown with an embroidered yellow kirtle, and her skirts rustled as she walked. Her ladies emulated her simple style without being able to capture it, for it was Kettricken's innate grace that lent elegance to her unpretentious garb. Despite the years that had passed, her posture and stride were still upright and unfettered. She walked with purpose, but I saw a stillness captured in her face. Some part of her was constantly aware of her missing son, and yet she still moved through the court as a queen. My heart stood still at the sight of her. I thought how proud Verity would be of this woman, and, "Oh, my queen," I breathed to myself. She halted in mid-stride, and I almost heard the intake of her breath. She glanced about and then up, her eyes meeting mine across the distance. In the shadow of the great hall, I could not see her blue gaze, but somehow I felt it. For an instant our eyes locked, but her face held puzzlement, not recognition. I felt the sudden thwack of fingers against the side of my head. I turned to my attacker, too amazed to be angry. A gentleman of the court, taller than I, looked down on me in sharp disapproval. His words were clipped. "You are obviously new to Buckkeep, oaf. Here the servants are not permitted to stare so brazenly at the queen. Be about your business. After this, remember your place, or soon you will have no place to remember."
Ugh. The worst. This is probably some descendant of Barrel Guy.
Wow, the family moved up in the world, huh?
Well, hey, you know what? There's money in selling barrels. I don't know.
It's a deep cut. All right.
That is a deep cut.
Well, there seems to be some sort of recognition, or a lack of recognition, but
Yeah.
notice of Fitz there.
Which is really weird because how did she hear him? Is this a weird, like,
I think it's just kind of a narrative thing. I don't know.
like it just happens that she turned around.
Their eyes met from across the room like
But
magnets.
also really unclear to me. Okay, this is a fault of mine, and I will fully admit that. I hate trying to picture buildings in my mind. Like whenever I'm reading, I'm always picturing a set, but the set is more hazy and it's more like the people and what they're doing. Like if it says they're sitting on a chair, I can really clearly picture a chair, right? But the rest of the room, I don't know what that looks like. So in a moment like this where he's walking upstairs, in my mind, all the stairs in Buckkeep are hallways. Like I guess I just never thought there would be a banister to look down because in my mind, Buckkeep is all stone. And here he is standing at a banister looking in a room that's far. She's far enough away. He can see far enough that she's like a little unclear. He can't fully make out her reaction, but not so far that she couldn't have heard him whisper, "Oh, my queen."
I don't even know if she hears him, but
yeah. But it just, in general, I hate this sort of thing because I'm like, well, what kind of room is this? What? How does that make sense? And maybe he's not even in the stairs. Maybe he's like on a step and like on his way up the stairs in the hallway and he's looking down this big, I don't know. I hate it. But anyway, it's really interesting to me that the first time he sees Kettricken in all these years, and he first of all recognizes her by her voice to start, and then is like on and on about how beautiful and regal and just perfect she is, and how it doesn't matter that age has touched her because she's still so graceful, and all those other ladies pale in comparison. And it's definitely because she has something innately royal about her. And it's not just because he has a huge crush on her and is seeing somebody who could have been a really good life companion for him living her best life. But hey, what do I know?
So, of course, when he's kind of thwacked up against the side of the head here, anger fills Fitz. Even if he's reminded of his place, like, "Oh, you are a servant, you can't do this." He's still very angry, and it took every bit of his will to avert his eyes and bob his head. Your pardon, sir. I will remember. I hoped he took my strangled voice for crushed humiliation rather than rage. Gripping the sides of the tray tightly, I continued my journey up the stairs as he went down, and did not allow myself to glance over the balustrade to see if my queen watched me go. A servant. A servant. I am a loyal, well-trained manservant. I am newly come from the country, but well recommended. So I am a mannered servant, accustomed to discipline, accustomed to humiliation. Or was I? When I had followed Lord Golden into Buckkeep, Verity's blade was in its plain scabbard, had hung at my side. Surely some would have marked that. My complexion and the scars on my hands marked me as a man who lived more out of doors than in. If I was to play this role, then it must be believable. It must be a role I could endure, as well as one I could act convincingly. Which is a little bit of him trying to make himself a little bit more comfortable as a servant here, but also it does make sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some truth bringing to the statement of if you're going to play a role, it needs to be believable. But I find it interesting that instead of trying to live in a way that makes it more believable that he is a good, docile servant, he finds a way to make it more comfortable for him to not have to be a servant, or well, not have to act the way a typical servant would.
Right. It excuses his maybe possible rages at certain times, or it creates an environment where somebody wouldn't want to physically reprimand him in case he could be dangerous.
Right. Which, you know what? I also wouldn't want to get thwacked on the head for looking at somebody by a stranger. Like, okay, don't touch me. How about that? So I get it. I also would not want to be treated that way. But I just find it really interesting that instead of trying to find a way to play within the role, he's sort of expanding the role to fit him inside of it.
But I think that really works for him because then he's able to inhabit that role a little bit more fully without his misgivings of being a serving person, right? So he fully starts to embody that. He knocks on the door to Lord Golden's room, pauses discreetly, and then enters in. Carefully closing the door behind me, latched it, and then set down the tray at the table. As he began to lay out the meal, I spoke to his back. I am Tom Badgerlock, your servant. I was recommended to you as a fellow who was educated above his station by an indulgent master, but kept more for his blade than his manners. You chose me because you wanted a manservant capable of being your bodyguard as well as your valet. You have heard that I am moody and occasionally quick-tempered, but you are willing to try me to see if I will serve your purpose. I am 42 years old. The scars I bear I took defending my last master from an attack by 6 highwaymen. I killed them all. I am not a man to be provoked lightly. When my last master died, he left me a small bequest that enabled me to live simply. But now my son has come of age, and I wish to apprentice him in Buckkeep town. You persuaded me to return to service as a way to defray my expenses. Lord Golden had turned from the window. His aristocratic hands clasped one another as he listened to my soliloquy. When I had finished, he nodded. I like it, Tom Badgerlock. Such a coup for Lord Golden, to have a manservant who is just a tiny bit dangerous to keep about. Such an air shall I put on over having hired such a man. You will do, Tom. You will do well. And so he advances to the table, sits down, is like, will you join me? And Fitz is like, no.
I need to practice.
And Beloved looks horrified for a second. For an instant, the fool looked horrified. Then Lord Golden lifted a napkin and patted at his lips. So yes, the fool is like, do not serve me. That is crazy. We're friends. But then he can also play his part.
Yeah, I think this is also hard for Beloved, made clear by the fact that Fitz can tell it's hard for him.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I think there are times when Beloved does things that are hard that he doesn't show as much. So I think this is really a struggle of, this is a person that you love and that is your friend, and you don't want to be disrespectful, especially, I mean, Fitz is basically a step away from being a prince. Like, he is royalty. I mean, not official royalty, but royalty nonetheless. And it is crazy to think about. Like, you wouldn't ask Prince Harry to serve you tea. That's weird. It just like feels wrong, because even though it is just a guy at the end of the day, like, I don't know. It's still a weird thing, especially if you were like a friend and knew him as a prince.
Right.
So I think it's really interesting to have that struggle there too. But I do find it a little bit humorous that Fitz is sort of trying to be like, oh yeah, I'm really old, 42. And I beat up 6 men. It was 6 men, maybe 10.
Kill them all.
I killed them all. I'm so good, which is funny. And not that I'm saying that Fitz couldn't take 6 guys on his own. He absolutely could.
In his prime with an axe.
Yeah,
sure.
like back in the day, for sure he would win. But it's just a funny thing to be like, yeah, I beat up 3. No, it was 6 guys.
Don't provoke me lightly.
All because some guy had the audacity to thwack him on the head and be like, hey, don't stare at the queen. And he's like, actually, I killed 6 dudes one time and I'm 42 and I have a temper. I have a temper and I'm dangerous. It's just a little bit of a funny image in my head of like this little kid sort of, well, don't mess with me because I'm dangerous. But he is dangerous. He could back it up. It's just funny.
Lord Golden is like, yeah, keep this up and I'll have to raise your wages. And then he asks about the son of yours, Tom. I've not met him. He's in Buckkeep town, is he? I told him to follow me here, sir. And then he's quiet for a while because Fitz is thinking like, oh man, I told him to follow me. But he kind of just knows where he's going, but I haven't talked to Jenna about that. I haven't made arrangements for him. There's like so much I need to do right now. There's no provisions for him at all. And suddenly I knew I had to seek out the hedge witch and be sure my boy would be accepted there. I'd leave a message for Hap with her, and I had to approach Chade immediately about making provisions for him. Given what I knew now, it seemed a cold bargain, and my heart shrank within me at the thought of it. I could always borrow the money from the fool. I winced at the thought. Just what are my wages? I prompted myself to ask, but the words could not find their way to my tongue.
I think also something that we kind of skipped over is that he realizes that the only other person that he might have been able to go to is Starling, and he doesn't even know if Starling is in Buckkeep right now.
Right.
And with everything that happened between them last, he can't go with them or go to her and ask for her help. So that's fully off the table. And it's just kind of this snowballing effect again of this anxiety of what am I going to do for my boy? How do I make sure he's safe and taken care of while I get mixed up in all this palace business?
Yeah. And so he's quiet for a while, and the fool obviously knows he's thinking about something, prompted by his question about Hap. And Lord Golden says, well, I will give you the day for a little bit. I expect you to do a bunch of stuff tomorrow, but I'm going to give you a note for the tailor and also for a weapons dealer. So find yourself a good sword. We'll get you some new clothes, and then I'll expect you tomorrow.
And he also talks about how because he's now sort of a guard as well as valet, he's going to have better opportunity to take Fitz to the fancy dinners and
right. You can stand up behind my chair then.
Exactly. And
it's
so
not weird.
So it's getting Fitz into more places, which is an added bonus, but it also means that he needs outfits that Lord Golden would want and expect of his valet.
And the fool explains quietly that Hodd's work, even if it's not Verity's blade, but Hodd's work will be recognizable, and that's just, you can't have that sword.
Yeah. And he does tell Fitz he needs to put the sword in the tower, not in his room, because if somebody were to come into Fitz's room while Lord Golden and Fitz are away, they cannot find that sword. It would be super suspicious.
Right.
It's just really important that he tries to stay away from who he was at all costs.
So Fitz replies, I'll keep it in the tower, and I shall also be speaking to the weapon master to ask him to provide me a practice partner. I shall tell him my skills are a bit rusty, and you want me to sharpen them. Who is Prince Dutiful's drill partner? The fool knew. He always knew things like that. So he finds out it was a woman named Delary, and Obviously, Fitz can't just straight up ask for her as a partner. That'd be a little bit suspicious. So the fool's like, her specialty, I think, is two swords. So tell the weapon master that you need to practice up on your defense and want to fight against somebody with two swords. That should partner you up. And then the fool starts to write his orders for the tailor
Yes.
and looks Fitz over appraisingly. And Fitz is feeling a little bit nervous about that
Like,
because now
no.
Beloved gets to dress him how he wants.
Which I feel like something that Beloved has always wanted to do. I'm 99% sure in the first trilogy that the fool makes some comment on how Fitz doesn't know how to dress himself or something and is like, oh, you'd look so much better in this outfit. So I feel like this is kind of a funny little full circle moment of like, finally I can dress Fitz the way he deserves, but it has to be within the confines of he's a servant, which is a fun little layer. But I also find it really interesting how much we see the implicit trust that Fitz has in Beloved, because he's just telling Fool everything that he knew from Chade earlier, and now here saying, I think, he's including him in the plans of what he's going to do next. He wants to work with Dutiful's weapons partner to try to learn more, and he just knows that Beloved will know that information.
Yeah.
Because Beloved just is like Chade in a lot of ways. They have little networks that they know about other things that you wouldn't expect them to. And I don't know, I just think it's kind of nice, but also really endearing that there is that much trust in their relationship, that Fitz is just openly telling him everything. Like, yeah, this is my plan. This is what I'm doing. Can you help? And he would not ever do that to Chade. There'd always be the balance of like, what do I tell him? What's important for him to know? What won't he stop me from doing? But when it's Beloved, it's like, hey, here's my plan. Can you make it better or add to it?
Right.
And it's like a really nice little partnership that they have.
Lord Golden finishes up his instructions and says, okay, get going. You can go to things. I plan to walk around the gardens for a bit, and then I have been invited to the Queen's parlor for, I saw her, Kettricken. It seems so long ago, us waking the stone dragons and all. And then something will happen, and it seems like yesterday. The last time I saw Kettricken, she sat aside Verity's dragon and bade us all farewell. Now, today, I saw her, and it suddenly all came real for me. She has reigned here as queen for well over a decade. I stepped aside from all this to heal, and because I thought I could no longer be a part of it. Now I've returned, and I look around me and think, I've missed my life. While I was off and alone, it went on here without me, and I'm forever doomed to be a stranger in my own home. Regrets are useless, the fool replied. All you can do is start from where you are. And who knows, perhaps what you bring back from your self-imposed exile may prove to be just what is needed. And time flies by us, even as we speak. Quite so, Lord Golden replied. He gestured at his wardrobe. My coat, Badgerlock, the green one. So Fitz is feeling a little bit out of sorts now. He's just like, well, I did have friends here. I did have a life here, and I did just let it go. And that's kind of the feeling that Kettricken especially has later on too. Just like, well, Chade said that you might want to be alone, so I let it alone. But like,
I didn't want to.
Yeah, I didn't want you to go. And it's just kind of that whole feeling of, we let you go because you felt like that was the best thing for you, but we didn't think it was the best thing for you.
Yeah, I think this chapter as a whole really has a very sad undertone to it that is highlighted especially in this little exchange between Fitz and Beloved here, where Fitz explains that he feels like he made the wrong choice. He lost his future because of a choice he made in the past in his mind at this moment. And it's just really heartbreaking to me because it's one of those things where he made sort of a, in my opinion, trauma-informed response to everything that was happening of, that was too much, I'm worthless, I am nothing but a liability, and I don't bring anything to the table. I need to be alone because it's the only place I can't mess things up. And instead of having sort of a village around him to be able to take care of him and help him through that feeling of you don't have to necessarily bring anything to the table to be worthy of love, he was left to his own devices. And so that sort of feeling perpetuated itself for 10 years of just, I can't go back. It will ruin everything for everybody. No part of my life can be my own ever again because nobody needs me and they would do worse if I was there. And he just kept telling himself that. And then coming back and
Or they
realizing,
need him too much.
or they need him too much. And just coming back and realizing, like, it actually never had to be that serious. And I might have been overreacting is a huge revelation.
Yeah.
And I think it's really hard. And I feel really bad for Fitz here. And it's not the fault of the other people either, in my mind, right? Like, there was a lot going on at the same time, and they did not have the capacity to be able to be there for Fitz in the way he needed. And that isn't necessarily their fault, right? That's not their job, but they loved him and wanted to help him, and they couldn't do that in a way that he needed at the time. And so there's this sort of feeling of, wow, I wasted so much time.
But at the same time, like, personally, I feel like he made the correct decision because if he did go back to Buckkeep, he would have been hidden for 15 years in the walls and they wouldn't have let him rest for more than a year.
Yeah.
They would have just been like, okay, year's up. Like, we need you to kill people again.
Yeah.
I think Fitz really needed at least 5 years to just kind of chill. I think they should have grabbed him back after that, but you know.
I don't know. It's really hard. It's a really, I have a lot of conflicting feelings about it, but I do just feel bad here at Fitz realizing how isolated he has become
Yeah.
and realizing how maybe that wasn't actually a good choice to make. And that is hard. It is 10 years of his
is.
life that
Yeah.
he spent alone. I mean, not fully alone because he had his wolf and he had the boy and he had Starling, but I mean, comparatively,
Yeah.
he was alone, and it's tough.
But like the fool says, you know, regrets right now are kind of useless because we're here now. Let's just make a better start of it.
Yeah, and you can't turn back time.
Yeah.
You can't. You can regret it, but if you just sit there wishing things had been different, then you're wasting now,
Mhm.
and that's not productive either. And then you're going to waste more time. So you might as well just start from here because that's what you have. That's the option.
Mhm. So Tom helps Lord Golden to dress. Lord Golden heads out, and Fitz finishes up a couple tasks. Cleans up, he eats, he brings a sword to Chade's tower, gets dressed, looks in the mirror, and sees a serving man.
Right. And I just to back up a little bit, he specifically, as he's helping Lord Golden get dressed, is emulating what he saw Chatham do to Verity all those years ago. And Lord Golden is actually pretty impressed by his ability to get him ready and do certain serving tasks. I
Or
think,
at least amused by it, by him
Yeah.
trying to emulate it.
yeah, but I think it's really interesting that, and kind of cute in a way, that he's like, oh, I gotta be a good serving person. I'll be Chatham. Like, it's a little bit sweet.
Mm-hmm. So after Fitz is done with all those tasks, he also gets out and walks out of the keep to go down to Buckkeep town. Realizes that no one really is looking at him because he's a servant. Brings the dishes back to the kitchen and walks out through the gates, and the guards don't give him trouble at all or even really notice him. It was a fine day and the road was well traveled. Summer seemed determined to linger for a time. I fell in behind a group of ladies' maids going down to the town with baskets on their arms. They glanced warily back at me twice and then ignored me. The rest of the way down the hill I listened hungrily to their gossip, but found no hints there. They were speaking of the festivities that would accompany the prince's betrothal and what their mistresses would wear. Somehow the queen and Chade had been able to disguise the prince's absence. In the town, he quickly goes on to Lord Golden's errands, but keeps his ears pricked for any hint of dutiful or any other gossip that would strike an interest. So he finds his way to the tailor's first, which is Molly's father's old chandlery.
Yes.
And the tailor there is like, well, oh man, I have to get all of these clothes ready by tomorrow. Well, he's paid enough and he's given me a lot of custom. Okay, just stand there, get measured, and I'll have it all ready to be picked up tomorrow.
And Fitz is kind of relieved by this whole interaction because he's not there as a lord, he's there as a servant. So he's not asked any questions. All the things that Lord Golden wants has been written down. They just have to take his measurements. And he doesn't get any input. They don't ask him his opinion. And he's kind of relieved in that in some ways, but I think it also sort of gets under his skin that he has no say.
Right.
But when they're done with him, he is able to then leave and says he'll come back to pick everything up.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes over
Asks
to
about a hedge witch,
Yes.
and the tailor shakes his head at his low-born superstition and says, ask about it near the smithy lane.
Yes. And he is going there anyway because he is going to the weapons master to sort of pick up a new sword.
Yes, Croy is the weapons dealer, and he kind of wants to find a unadorned, simply well-made blade, but also notes that that's pretty much what every man-at-arms wants, so they're kind of few and far between.
Yes.
And finally picks a blade that it matches his rusty skills. The guy kind of tries to talk him into buying a more ornate one for Lord Golden's manservant, and he's like, no, I don't want any of that frills.
Yeah, like that's not what I want. But the guy says, you have enough money here to afford it. Like it's fine. So Fitz decides to
Get a knife as well.
get a knife since he has the extra money.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up for this week. Thank you, everybody who is listening along. And if you have any thoughts on this episode, please let us know at isfitzhappy@gmail.com, or you can message us on all the socials, isfitzhappy, or at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, Threads, Reddit, isfitzhappy at all of those. So please let us know if you have any thoughts on this half of the chapter. It's going to go pretty long, so sorry to break it up into 2 parts after we've skipped a week here, but
Really coming back with a bang.
yeah, exactly.
And we haven't had to do it yet. This is our first time for this trilogy. So
True.
exciting. I just have a lot to gab about. So
That's perfect for a podcast. Thank you, everybody.
okay, now we get to do our favorite part, which is talk about what you guys have sent to us. And this week, it's going to be a little bit shorter than all the other ones, as we just have a few things from Instagram to talk about. The first of which is from our listener, Gil. And Gil wrote in to say, they wonder if Robin Hobb had the Romans in mind when she thought about the Elderlings and how they disappeared. I know other people remained, but all the structures and cool things from the Romans remained, but they fell into disrepair because they didn't know how to maintain them. Maybe it's similar in the way to the Elderlings, where we have all their magical artifacts and we, the people of Rote, can use them, but they can't recreate them. And when they run out of battery or, steam, whatever's powering them,
magic.
they will be lost forever. I think Rain mentions that the Jidzin in the city is growing weaker in Treehog as an example.
Yes, and I don't know if she specifically took that as inspiration, but it's a great analogy because I think that's true of how she's reacting to it and how she's using the Elderling lost wonders.
Yeah, it does feel very much like a ancient society that know things. It kind of reminds me of when people talk about, I think it's called the Garden of Alexandria. That would, or maybe I'm mixing up the library and the big garden.
The Gardens of Babylon. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, which is, if you didn't know, a previous seventh wonder of the world that has been lost to time, but supposedly was this like beautiful, amazing garden in Babylon that was crazy and everybody loved it. It was beautiful, but they don't know how they made it or how it was destroyed
or
whatever.
where it was really.
Yeah.
Like they've Now I think science is coming out and like, oh, it could possibly be this and this and this, but it's just,
Like at the time, it was a really advanced botanical garden, from what I understand, and it
multiple
couldn't.
floors up, and it had to be irrigated, but water had to be pumped upwards. Like
So of the time, it was like almost magical in what they were doing.
or
whereas,
like for me, thinking of like Damascus steel is like, oh, how do they create this? Or like you said in here. The Romans, like Roman concrete.
yeah,
And I know now we have kind of ideas of how things are made, but
right.
or like alchemical fire, you know,
Yes.
there's these magical things, or Archimedes' death ray.
Yeah. And I think part of the mystery and the magical allure, especially of a thing like the Elderling cities and the Elderlings themselves, is that they had such advanced technology comparatively to the era that this book series is being written in.
Yeah.
And that it's something that was lost to time that nobody can recreate. And so it makes it even more of this like magic thing. And it doesn't hurt that there is real magic in the world, but I think that sense of like, how did they do that? Because I mean, if you look back at the Romans as a real human and look back at that, it's kind of crazy they did all that stuff, right? Like we have technology and we can recreate what they did now, but it took us years of research to figure out how they even did it in the first place with better technology. So I think that adds to the allure. And I think whether or not she did it on purpose, I think it's a good frame of reference of like, it's that wonder of how did they do that back then? They don't even have what we have and they did it. Like how? And I don't know. I just appreciate that feeling.
Yeah.
So I like really that. Cool. So thank you.
Gil also has an unrelated comment about Kelsingra. This was from chapter 12 of Ship of Destiny, episode 216. And this is from Tintaglia's point of view. Gil loves the reference to lasagna.
Yes.
But Tintaglia mentions Kelsingra, and Gil mentions that the first time reading through didn't really connect it with where Fitz went.
Yeah.
But this time through, it's like really cool to see like, oh, that actually, Fitz went there at the end of the last trilogy, and now Tintaglia is mentioning it in all its historical splendor in the past. Like it's really cool connection.
And it is also very crazy to me that Kelsingra is still called Kelsingra like thousands of years later. I don't know if it's thousands or hundreds, but
don't they find the name of it in the city itself?
Maybe. No, because maybe they do.
Because I thought in Rain Wilds there was just there's this magical thing. Or was it in the scrolls that Alice finds? I don't remember.
I don't know. Well,
or there were
Fitz
dreams
in the like Buckkeep, the Farseer line knows it as Kelsingra, right? Or does Fitz find that name when he goes there?
I don't remember at all.
I can't remember how it gets there, but I know Fitz calls it that in the first trilogy.
Signs?
Maybe. Fitz calls it that in the first trilogy. That's what the dragons refer to it as, and that's how. And the dragons referring to it as that makes sense. That then the people on the river, the Rainwild traders, would also call it that. But I just find it really interesting that they all still kept that name.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool connection all the way throughout all the books.
Yeah, so thank you for that.
They go there every single trilogy, every single series of this 16-book series.
Yes, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, this series, do they? No.
Oh, Tawny. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I was thinking the skill stones, but they only go to Other Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, close.
This is the only one they don't then. Thank you, Gil.
Yeah, thank you, Gil. And then to wrap up, we also got a very funny message from John on Instagram that made me cackle. And that is that whenever I tried to pronounce, I'm going to do it again, Hetgerd, I was
in the episode you were going Hurtgerd.
I kept saying Hurtgerd, and I don't know, Hertzgerd, Gertzherd, Hetgerd, whatever. That made John think of the Schitt's Creek episode with Moira Rose doing the commercial for the wine. And if you've never seen Schitt's Creek, watch it, but especially watch the clip of Moira doing her wine commercial.
I'll try to put in because she tries to say a name at the end and she just cannot do it.
Hertzbergler, Bergferdner, whatever. Like, that's me. That is absolutely me when I don't know how to pronounce the word. So
you'll remember the experience, and you'll remember the name, Herb Ervlinger, Bert Herngeif, Irv Herblinger, Bing Livehanger, Liveling, Bert Herkern.
Thank you. I've never been more flattered to be compared to Moira.
And John says, also, Heckard sounds like a Nordic import word, but probably is just made up. Emma almost sounded Minnesotan when she said it.
That honestly is, then you just crashed right back down. What an offensive thing to say. As somebody who lived for 7 years in Wisconsin, how dare you say I sound like I'm from Minnesota? That's what I get to tell Luke, not people tell me. My accent is perfectly Midwest. Thank you.
Minnesota is in the Midwest. Come on.
Okay, well, they don't count.
There is a very distinct difference between Minnesotan and the rest of the Midwest.
Minnesota and Wisconsin do a little bit sound the same.
Kind of a blurred area on the west side of the state there. My grandparents are from that side.
Don't you know?
Mm-hmm. I do know. I do know. So I really appreciated you saying it sounded Minnesotan.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Oh, the Herkert over there.
Oh, yeah. My good friend Herkert over there.
They're in charge of the Out Islands. And
they bring in the nicest hot dish every time. They're part near the Out Islands.
The last thing was a video from Sir. They sent us some man having fun with a raven and just like, oh, the old blood is here too. So it was a cool little video to see.
Yeah.
It's having a friendly raven. Looks like they're in the middle of a forest, so maybe it's a wild raven, but who knows? The man is hugging that raven, so.
Yeah. Well, ravens can be like domesticated pretty easily. You just have to like trade with them. So that's fun.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Cool stuff. We love hearing from you guys. Thanks so much for reaching out, even if it is to make fun of me.
I love that part. That's great. Thank you, everyone.
See you next week.